The day my fiancée pretended to have amnesia, she dragged me to the Civil Affairs Bureau and turned the marriage certificate we had just received the day before into a divorce certificate. 2 days later, the wedding I had meticulously planned went ahead as scheduled. The bride was still her, but the groom had changed to her ex-boyfriend, with whom she had been on and off for years. When we met again, she tugged at my hand. Her eyes read, "Joel, where have you been? Why haven't you come to find me in all these days?" I pretended to be confused, as if I were looking at a stranger. "Miss, who are you? Do we know each other?" Chapter 1. Joel, come to the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 to get the divorce, Sophia ordered, hanging up the phone without waiting for me to respond. Sophia was my fiancée. She had lost her memory. The first thing she did after losing her memory was to call me and ask for a divorce. We had gotten married yesterday morning, but by this morning, the marriage certificate had already turned into a divorce certificate. I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau and found that Sophia wasn't alone. The man walking closely beside her, holding her arm, was someone I recognized. I had seen him in Sophia's secret WeChat circle before. His name was Horace, her ex-boyfriend, with whom she had been entangled for 5 years. It wasn't until I showed up that he seemed to disappear from Sophia's WeChat social circle. Now that Sophia had lost her memory, she had forgotten me, yet he had returned to her side. When Horace saw me, his smile became awkward. He stammered, "Mr. Sue, please don't misunderstand. Sophia and I are just..." As he spoke, he didn't loosen his grip but instead held her tighter. From the angle where Sophia couldn't see, he gave me a mocking smile. Sophia tightened her grip on his hand, leaning affectionately on his shoulder, and spoke with a firm tone. I asked Horace to come with me. "There's no misunderstanding, he's my boyfriend." A sharp pain struck my chest, meeting Horace's triumphant gaze. I forced a smile and nodded. I understand. Not many people get divorced." As we were processing the paperwork, the staff looked at me with a strange expression. I was also surprised. It was the same person who had helped us with our marriage paperwork yesterday. Back then, he had wished us, "Congratulations on your marriage. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." We had thanked him with a smile. And today, we were back here. But this time, it was for a divorce. The arm that had been linked to Sophia was no longer mine, but Horace's. Standing in front of them, I felt utterly out of place and awkward. The staff scrutinized the three of us, then hesitated before saying, "Sorry, this doesn't comply with regulations." Sophia frowned, impatient. She made a phone call, and just like that, we got our divorce certificate. It was somewhat ridiculous, a red book, the same as the marriage certificate, but now there was no sweet photo on it. I clutched the certificate, trying to ignore the burning pain in my chest. Horace, as if casually, asked me, "Now that you're divorced, you're not planning to stay at Sophia's place, are you?" He only seemed to realize his words after speaking and quickly added, "Sorry, I know Mr. Sue didn't buy a house, but since you were once a couple, if you want to stay a few days, Sophia won't mind." Sophia interrupted him coldly, her tone devoid of emotion as she looked at me. "We are divorced now. Take your things and move out." Her voice was cold, and it was as if she hadn't pretended to lose her memory at all. My throat tightened. The glaring red divorce certificate burned into my vision. Had she pretended to have amnesia just for this? Why? I was never the type to cling to someone. If she wanted a divorce, how could I have clung to a woman who didn't love me? But it was laughable that after 5 years of our relationship, I couldn't even get a clear answer. A marriage, ending with such a ridiculous conclusion. I took a deep breath, forcing a stiff smile. "All right, as you wish." Chapter 2. Sophia was driving the car we had chosen together as our wedding car. When we bought it, Sophia told me, "On our wedding day, I'll marry you with this car." We had just picked up the car yesterday afternoon, and I hadn't even had the chance to sit in it yet. Now, however, the person sitting in the front passenger seat was Horace. It had become the witness to their love. Sophia leaned over, affectionately fastening Horace's seatbelt. They were so close, their breaths intertwined. As Sophia stood up, Horace planted a sweet kiss on her cheek. Instinctively, Sophia glanced up at me. Horace, following her gaze and seeing me, grumbled, "Sorry, this car was a gift from Sophia to me. It's just for me. I don't want any other man sitting in it." Sophia, with a loving look, responded, "Of course, it's a gift from my wife. How could I let anyone else sit here?" With that, Sophia and Horace left, walking away with a sense of pride. The pungent smell of car exhaust hit me in the face. My throat tightened, and the pain in my chest nearly stole my breath away. In a hurry, I grabbed a taxi and rushed over, only to find the villa's gate firmly closed. My luggage was carelessly thrown outside, lying in the mud from last night's rain. Soaked and dirty, I knocked on the door for a long time before the housekeeper opened it. Her expression was awkward. "Horace told me to throw all this out." Horace's voice came from inside. "Are these your things?" "Sorry, I thought they were someone else's trash and had everything thrown out. I didn't mean to. Mr. Sue, I hope you're not upset. Horace walked out in his pajamas, deliberately showing off the hickey on his neck. I pretended not to see it, only curling my lips into a tight smile. Horace's manners are really concerning. A scolding voice came from inside. Joel, Sue, don't overstep. Horace already apologized to you. What else do you want? Turning my gaze, I saw Sophia walking over to Horace, her face icy and cold as she looked at me. Her eyes swept over the scattered belongings on the ground, and she scoffed. These old things, and you treat them like treasures. My breath caught, and my heart tightened painfully. I couldn't say a word. She hurriedly urged, pack up your things and take them away, or I'll have the cleaners throw them out. I suppressed the swelling pain in my eyes and nodded. Okay, also, I don't want to see you here again. Horace might misunderstand, and I can't let my husband get upset, she said, holding Horace close as they shared an intimate moment, completely ignoring me. My fists clenched, trembling with anger, swallowing the bitterness in my throat. I silently began packing my things. I hadn't lived here long, yet I had accumulated so much. 2 suitcases filled to the brim. This villa was supposed to be our home, Sophia's and mine. Every detail of the design, every piece of furniture, had been chosen and placed by me. It was all my dream, because this was the home where Sophia and I would spend our lives together. But now, the house looked the same, yet the person living in it wasn't me anymore. Things had changed, and so had we. I walked out carrying the 2 suitcases. Horace took a deep breath and said, with all this trash gone, the air feels so much fresher. Sophia, hearing that, ordered, housekeeper, have the entire house cleaned, and any of his things left behind, throw them in the trash. I stopped in my tracks. The wind blew across my face, and my heart felt empty. I turned around, smiled coldly at Horace, and said, the trash I don't want, I'll leave it to you. Chapter 3. I rented a small apartment next to my studio. I had once refused to rent it because the rent was high, but I saved every penny, all for my career. Being with Sophia, I always feared that the gap between us would be too big, though I was just an ordinary guy, and the difference between my life and Sophia's family was like heaven and earth. Now, I had fallen from the clouds and returned to the mud below, but strangely, I felt more at ease. I lay in bed for a full 24 hours, lost in a daze. Then, I received a call from my partner, Joel. There's an important wedding tomorrow. I'm a wedding planner and run a wedding planning business with some friends. Originally, the wedding planned for tomorrow was supposed to be mine and Sophia's, the one I had spent 3 months preparing for. Now, before the wedding even began, it had already become nothing more than a phantom. When I heard those familiar words on the phone, my heart skipped a beat. I asked, my voice trembling, who's the bride and groom? Sophia and Horace's names echoed in my ears. My head was buzzing. I can't be the one to host their wedding. My partner's cautious voice came through. Joel, they specifically requested you. You know, if you don't go, our studio. With a single word from Sophia's family, I could be left with nothing in this city. I hung up the phone, feeling like a lifeless lump on the bed. Sophia was coming after me. She had specifically asked for me to plan her wedding. They were provoking me, and there was no way for me to avoid it. I quickly got ready and rushed to the wedding venue. What greeted me was a breathtaking view of a lavender field in the estate. A gentle breeze blew, and the lavender flowers swayed like waves of purple. I had chosen this place for the wedding because Sophia had said lavender was her favorite. I wanted our most important day, the day I would marry the love of my life, to be surrounded by a sea of lavender. But now, looking at this sea of flowers, all that remained in my heart was bitterness. I pushed the bitterness aside and discussed the wedding details with Horace in a professional manner. He had many complaints, constantly pointing things out, asking for revisions. Sophia sat patiently beside him. She leaned into Horace's arms, showing no sign of impatience. Not long ago, she had leaned in my arms in the same way, tirelessly listening to my plans for our wedding. After wasting half the day, Horace finally said, forget it, let's just stick to the original plan. After all, Mr. Sue is the most familiar with the original plan. I trust him with it. I stared at the dense notes on the tablet, my fingers gripping it tightly. The original plan he was referring to was the one I had designed for my own wedding. Sophia knew that too. Horace, seeing my silent expression, smiled smugly. He casually remarked, the wedding is tomorrow morning. It's a bit rushed, but I believe Mr. Sue will do a perfect job. Right. I froze for a moment. Our wedding was originally scheduled for tomorrow morning. I lifted my eyes and met Horace's triumphant gaze. The wedding I had meticulously planned for a month was now being taken over by Horace. It felt disgusting, repulsive. After a long silence, I squeezed out a single word from my throat. Okay. Horace, with Sophia in his arms, grinned like a fox. Sophia, Mr. Sue really helped us a lot. We should give him a big red envelope when we get married. Sophia coldly replied. It's what he was supposed to do. Why else would I pay him to do this? At those words, Horace's grin widened even more. I tightened my lips, closed my eyes, and muttered, Horace is right. Both of you are gods. And this is what I should do. Chapter 4. I stayed up all night. The wedding took place at 10 a.m. as scheduled. Just as I was about to turn and leave, a sudden dizziness hit me, and I realized my forehead was burning. My steps were unsteady. The combination of staying up all night and the fever made it almost impossible for me to stand. But then someone suddenly supported me. I opened my eyes and saw it was Sophia. Without thinking, I pushed her away. Her expression flashed with surprise, then quickly turned cold. What are you standing here for? Don't you want to help? Are you trying to be the groom? I forced a smile. Money is hard to earn, and shit is hard to swallow. I didn't have the energy to argue with her. I silently turned and started to leave, but someone called me. Horace, dressed in a tailored suit, stood there with a confident posture. My eyes inevitably fell on his suit. This suit was originally chosen by Sophia for me, but now, it was on Horace. My fingers subconsciously dug into my palms, the sharp pain pulling at the tight strings in my mind. Horace smugly whistled in front of me. His face wore a fake smile. Mr. Sue, do you think this suit looks good? Does it match the atmosphere of today's event? I couldn't find the words, and just gave a half-hearted nod. His smile grew wider, and his eyes locked onto mine. I wonder if Mr. Sue would be willing to host our wedding. The string in my mind snapped at that moment. I looked up, my eyes burning with fury. Sophia seemed pleased with my reaction and ordered me, did you hear that? Horace asking you to host the wedding is an honor. A sarcastic smile tugged at the corner of my lips. What if I say I don't want to? Sophia looked at me coldly. Then I'll have to think that Mr. Sue is incapable, I suppose. With someone like that, there's no need for a company to keep running. Right. I bit my tongue, the taste of blood spreading in my mouth, forcing the bitterness in my throat down. It was humiliating. Why couldn't we part on good terms? I was never the type to cling on stubbornly. Even without today's humiliation, I would still keep my distance from them. Why did things have to be this way? I numbly nodded. I walked past them, my steps unsteady. When I reached Horace's side, I stopped briefly. In a low voice, I said, Horace, second-hand goods aren't suitable for you. Your shoulders are too loose, and your waist is too tight. I didn't look at Horace's suddenly darkened face, and quickly left. The wedding officially began. The sunlight filtered through the lavender field, creating a dreamy scene. Sophia, in a beautiful purple wedding gown, walked slowly into the lavender sea. Amid the thunderous applause, she placed her hand in Horace's. I thought I had become numb, but my eyes welled up uncontrollably. This was a wedding I had imagined countless times in my head. For 3 months, I had worked hard to make it a reality, but I wasn't the groom. My soul felt like it was torn into 2 parts, one in the flower field, aching with pain, and the other, numb, repeating the familiar lines I had said 1,000 times. I couldn't even remember how the wedding ended. I was burning with fever, drifting like a ghost back to my rental apartment. The moment I lay down, I fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. In my dreams, everything was fragmented, like watching a blur of images passing by, as if 5 years of my life with Sophia had swept past me in a flash. And with those 5 years, my dreams shattered, carried away, and left no trace. I slept for 3 days. When I woke up, I was starving. As I ordered takeout, my eyes landed on the wilted lavender on the windowsill. Lavender's flower language is waiting for you to love me. Sophia liked it, so I planted it on the balcony for her. I thought, I no longer needed it. Strangely enough, everything about Sophia seemed to have become part of the past, completely wiped away during these 3 days and nights of darkness. Even when I thought about it, it felt like looking at flowers in a mirror or the moon in water, vague, distant, as though in another lifetime. I touched my chest, where my heart was beating strongly. It no longer hurt. I blocked Sophia. If she wanted to pretend she had forgotten me, I hoped she would do so completely. Better for us to remain strangers for the rest of our lives. Perhaps it was a matter of personal failure in love, but success at work. We expanded our business nationwide. I started traveling frequently for work. When I returned from my last business trip a month later, I walked out of the company and saw a red sports car parked by the roadside. A woman leaned against the car door, looking tired. It seemed she had been waiting for a long time. When she saw me, she rushed forward, and in the backlight, I could clearly see her features. It was Sophia. I instinctively frowned, and before I could leave, she had already wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. Her eyes were red, as though I had done something wrong. Joel, where have you been? Why didn't you come to find me? A bitter smile formed in my heart as I looked up, my face now a mix of confusion and wariness. I looked at her like I would a stranger. Miss, who are you? Do we know each other? Chapter 5. Sophia froze completely, her face filled with disbelief. She anxiously hugged me tighter. Joel, what are you saying? How can you pretend you don't know me? Pain shot through my wrist. I frowned, my eyes turning cold. Miss, please let go. This is harassment. If you don't, I'll call the police. Sophia didn't let go. Her gaze fell on my face. When she saw the unfamiliarity in my eyes, panic and unease filled her expression. Her voice trembled. Joel, I'm Sophia. I'm your wife. I gave her a look of complete disbelief. In my struggle, I pushed her off forcefully. She winced in pain but still didn't release her grip. I yelled, crazy woman. She tried to cover my mouth, but it was too late. Passers-by quickly gathered around. She flustered and explained, I'm his wife. He's just throwing a tantrum. I pulled her hand away. She's lying. I don't know her. The crowd looked at us with confusion, and some of the bystanders even called the police. The police took both of us to the station. Sophia was my wife. She used to be. Now, she could only be called my ex-wife. The dates on the marriage and divorce certificates were just one day apart. Our marriage didn't even last 24 hours. After everything was clarified, the police looked at Sophia with unspoken words. After a thorough scolding, Sophia was released. Outside the police station, Sophia's eyes were fixed on me with a burning intensity. She asked hoarsely, Joel, don't you recognize me anymore? I stepped back in disgust and said indifferently, I had a serious illness a month ago and lost a lot of memories. Should I remember you? If I've forgotten, then it doesn't matter. Sophia's expression looked hurt. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something. I cut her off. I heard you're my ex-wife. Since you're my ex, I think there's no need for us to have anything to do with each other anymore. Sophia's expression became panicked. Joel, let me explain. Horace's voice cut in. Sophia. I looked toward the sound and saw Horace approaching quickly. His gaze filled with hostility. He arrogantly linked his arm with Sophia's and questioned, why are you here? I scoffed. Are you Sophia's husband? If you want answers, you should ask your wife, not me. The innocent bystander. Horace looked confused but stubbornly said, Sophia can't be wrong. But unexpectedly, Sophia pulled her arm out of his grasp. Her gaze never once landed on Horace. She took a step forward, only to stop, seemingly caught by the wary look in my eyes. She hoarsely explained, Joel, he's not my husband. We never got married. You're my only husband. At her words, Horace's face turned completely dark. He nervously tried to grab Sophia's hand. His tone urgent, Sophia, let's go home, please. Sophia instinctively pushed him away. Horace stumbled backward, hitting his lower back on the ground, letting out a pained groan. He exaggerated the pain. Sophia, I'm hurt. But Sophia didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on me, and her voice now carried a pitiful tone. Joel, let me explain. I had amnesia before, and that's why I was tricked into divorcing you. But now I remember everything. I impatiently interrupted her. I don't care. Please don't bother me. Chapter 6. I impatiently turned and walked away. Sophia tried to follow me. I coldly threatened. This is a police station. Do you want to go back inside? Her footsteps halted. Without looking back, I left. Behind me, I could hear Horace and Sophia having an intense argument. It had nothing to do with me, but Sophia began to cling to me relentlessly. She somehow found out where my rented apartment was and waited outside my door every day, looking pitiful. Whenever I opened the door, I was met with her face, which immediately made me frown in disgust. A brief flash of hurt crossed her eyes, but she insisted on handing me the breakfast she was holding. It was the small steamed buns and century egg congee I liked to eat. The packaging was from my favorite shop, a place far from my apartment. Yet, when she handed it to me, the breakfast was still steaming hot. I impatiently pushed her hand away. The breakfast fell to the ground. The buns rolled around, covered in dust. The congee spilled everywhere, splashing on my pants. I instantly lost my temper. Can you stop causing trouble first thing in the morning? This is so annoying. She looked at me with wounded eyes. A little bit of congee spilled onto her hand, burning her skin, turning it red. She lowered her head, speaking meekly, Joel, I'm sorry. I couldn't be bothered to listen to her explanation and slammed the door shut. After changing into fresh clothes, I deliberately ignored Sophia, who was still standing outside my door. She followed me pitifully, but my car's exhaust fumes blew right in her face. By noon, she persistently sent flowers and lunch through a delivery person. I refused to accept everything. The delivery driver, unsure what to do, called her several times. In the end, he could only leave the flowers and lunch at the company entrance. The heat was unbearable, and by the time I got to the food, it had spoiled, giving off a rancid smell. I pinched my nose and threw the spoiled lunch and the flowers, which had absorbed the foul stench all afternoon, into the trash. When I looked up, I met her wounded gaze. I furrowed my brows tightly and couldn't hold back my words. Why do you always cause trouble for others? Sophia bit her lip, her eyes clouded with a layer of gloom. I massaged my temples in frustration, my voice dripping with dissatisfaction. Sophia, what's the point of all this? I don't remember you, and I don't want to remember you. Can you stop interfering with my life? Sophia's face turned pale. She stood silently, her eyes filled with an indescribable sadness. After a long pause, she choked out, "Joel, can you give me a chance to wake up your memories? I've had amnesia too. I know how to help you remember." I interrupted her softly. "You had amnesia. I had amnesia. Well, now, neither of us owes the other anything. There's no need to recover our memories." Sophia's throat tightened. Pain flashed across her face as she spoke through her discomfort. "Joel, are you still blaming me? I was tricked into divorcing you by Horace. Can you forgive me?" I impatiently stressed. "It doesn't matter. I don't care." Her voice abruptly trailed off. Her breath became shallow and uneven, as though the pain inside her was overwhelming. After a long silence, she rasped, "Joel, you weren't like this before." Chapter 7. I work as a wedding planner. I've encountered all sorts of problems, big and small. That's why, in front of Sophia, I always keep my emotions stable. The only thing that makes me lose control is when Sophia claims to have amnesia and says she wants a divorce. I know she's faking it. This is just her trick to toy with me. But still, I lost control. I clearly saw the flash of self-satisfaction in her eyes. She took pleasure in my loss of composure. It seemed as if only if I were humble enough, pathetic enough, would it prove my love for her. Yes, it was only because of this that she tortured me, pretending to have amnesia to deceive me, enjoying this twisted form of psychological pleasure. How ridiculous. Is she still in elementary school? Does she test a man's love for her through acting? This isn't love, it's blatant mockery. She doesn't deserve my forgiveness. Time and time again, I pushed Sophia away from my door, but she never got tired and kept showing up in front of me. Every time I dismissed her feelings, a look of indescribable sadness would cross her face, but the next day, she would still crawl back to beg for my attention. One late night, I was watching food videos, feeling hungry, and casually posted a WeChat moment. I added a drooling emoji. Half an hour later, my door was knocked on. Sophia stood in front of my door, her forehead covered in sweat. In her hand was the exact dish I had posted about on WeChat. Listening to her heavy breathing, I could imagine that she must have run around to several places in the middle of the night before finally finding the food I wanted. But she didn't say a word about her struggles. She just handed me the food, speaking in a meek voice. "Joel, you said you wanted to eat this, so I brought it for you." There was no joy on my face, just deeper disgust. I pushed her hand away and grumbled. "Was this intentional? You know I'm dieting, yet you deliberately bring me high-calorie food late at night. Why do you always make things worse?" I coldly shut the door, but then, feeling unsatisfied, I opened the door again. Sophia's disappointed face instantly brightened, her eyes sparkling with hope. She asked eagerly, "Joel, will you accept my gesture now?" I scoffed. "Get lost. Don't snoop on my information anymore." I once again tore into her, slamming the door behind me. I found her alternate account and blocked her. Unable to contact me, she resorted to her old methods, waiting near my apartment and office every day. A few times, I overheard her talking on the phone outside my door. Horace and she were having loud arguments on the phone. Her assistant often messaged her, urging her to come back. Her father was in poor health, and now she was managing the company. Her frequent absences had caused a lot of business to stagnate, severely damaging the company's interests. The shareholders were displeased with her. She was stuck in a tough spot. I thought she would give up, but she didn't. I opened the door again and saw her standing there. Her face looked haggard, the delicate makeup unable to conceal the dark circles under her eyes. Upon closer inspection, her eyes were slightly red. I had called the police before. She was locked up for 2 or 3 days, but when she came out, she still didn't change. I scoffed. "How could a well-off young lady like you end up with a harassment charge? How can you be so pathetic?" Sophia clenched her teeth, her jawline tense. She silently conveyed her determination, but I was tired of this pointless game. I crossed my arms and looked down at her. "Tell me, what will it take for you to give up?" Chapter 8. Upon hearing this, Sophia suddenly straightened up, her eyes lighting up. She said with great excitement, "Joel, give me a chance to try to restore your memory. Okay, once you remember everything, you'll definitely come back to me." I stared at her meaningfully for a while, then said, "You're so sure that once I remember everything, I'll change my mind? But whether I have amnesia or not, the fact is you divorced me, and you married Horace. I don't believe that a restored memory will make me forgive you." Faced with my pushiness, Sophia instinctively took a step back. Her eyes avoided mine, no longer meeting my gaze, but her words were firm, as though she was trying to cover up her own guilt. "Joel, once you remember everything, you'll definitely come back to me." I couldn't be bothered to expose her self-deception. I calmly said, "I'll give you a week. If you can't change my mind, then stop pestering me." Sophia bit her lip and hesitantly asked, "Can it be a month instead?" I frowned, annoyed. "Don't try to bargain with me. I don't want to waste time on you." And you're running out of time too. If you keep pestering me, it's only you who'll suffer in the end. Sophia clenched her teeth, falling silent. I raised my hand to close the door. She reached out to stop me and answered, "Fine." With that, she looked at me with a deep gaze. Her eyes were filled with longing and hope. She took my hand and led me through the city, showing me the places we once visited together. Our first encounter was her falling in love with me at first sight. Just from a fleeting glance, she deliberately approached me. She would carefully probe my likes and find topics we could talk about in common. I loved wine, enjoyed hot pot, liked playing basketball, and had a particular fondness for certain games, specific colors, and shared aesthetic views and values. She knew it all. When we talked, I felt like we were soulmates, and our conversations were always enjoyable. I gradually started to believe she was someone I could connect with deeply. Falling in love with her was only natural and inevitable. We were together for 3 years. I wasn't blind to the fact that she wasn't as perfect as when we first met, but I thought this was just a normal part of relationships. When you love someone, you lower your own standards and accept them with kindness. But Sophia's true nature was far worse than I had imagined. As she chattered in my ear, recalling stories from our past, I just looked at her with an emotionless expression. She quickly averted her gaze, unable to meet the indifference in my eyes. By the time she reached the later parts of her story, I couldn't help but furrow my brow. The pleasant memories she spoke of had long been replaced by the humiliation and mistreatment I had endured at her hands. I couldn't be moved, not even a little. Seeing my lack of reaction, her eyes began to redden bit by bit. She opened her phone's photo album and began telling the stories behind each picture. As the photos progressed, suddenly, there was one of Horace and her together. She panicked and quickly closed her phone, rambling, "Joel, I simply asked with curiosity. I heard Horace was your ex-boyfriend. You two broke up and got back together for 3 years. Why didn't you stay with him?" Chapter 9. Sophia suddenly fell silent. After a long pause, she said in a deep voice, "He's just part of my past, Joel. The person I love now is you." I then asked, "But you lost your memory, and the only person you forgot was me. You chose to marry him, which means I'm not irreplaceable. It also means he's important to you. So why are you still holding on to me? Isn't it better to be with him?" Sophia's lips turned pale for a moment, and she couldn't find the words. I calmly continued, "If you can forget, that means what's forgotten isn't important. You, like me, are expendable." I looked her straight in the eye, then added softly, "Besides, amnesia is never an excuse to mistreat someone." Her breath hitched, and panic spread across her eyes, consuming them. Her lips quivered, but her throat seemed to be completely dry. After a long pause, she quietly said, "Joel, I have 3 days. I will make you remember our past." I gave a sarcastic laugh and didn't respond. On the 4th day, she brought over the blue cat that had been sent to the pet store for boarding. The blue cat jumped to my feet, affectionately rubbing against my hand, unwilling to leave. As I stroked its dull, withered fur, my body stiffened suddenly. This blue cat was the birthday gift she gave me on my 26th birthday. A huge bouquet of lavender hit a 3-month-old kitten. The little kitten poked its head out from the flowers, looking so adorable that it softened anyone's heart. She held the flowers and the cat, with a gentle smile on her face. "Joel, would you give this little kitten a home?" I softly stroked the kitten's fluffy little head and said, without thinking, "Little kitten, would you like to come to my home?" The kitten let out a weak meow, but the voice that responded louder than the kitten's meow was Sophia's. "Yes, I'm willing." She squeezed beside me, her voice full of joy. "The kitten needs a mother too. You wouldn't want her to grow up without the company of a mother, right?" I understood what she was implying, and my heart raced. From that moment on, we began living together. Now, as Sophia spoke of that memory, her eyes were full of tenderness. I absent-mindedly stroked the blue cat resting in my lap, my expression distant, my heart as calm as still water. I remembered the day I was kicked out by Sophia. The only thing I could take with me was what they considered trash. Even though this blue cat was a birthday gift from her, it was officially mine, yet I couldn't take it away. A mocking smile curled at the corner of my mouth. I put on a stern face and reproached her. "How could you put a cat in with lavender? Didn't you know that lavender is toxic to cats? What if it ate some and got poisoned? Also, who gives a living creature as a birthday gift? This is a life, and the person who raises it is responsible for its entire life. Or do you see a cat as nothing? You think you can keep it when you want and abandon it when you don't?" My barrage of accusations left Sophia stunned. She stood there helplessly, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. I gently hugged the blue cat in my arms. The cat was a gift from Sophia, but it was I who took care of it. I had never owned a pet before. After researching, I learned that cats shouldn't be near lavender. From then on, I made sure to keep the lavender and the cat apart, but she hadn't noticed. So even now, she could confidently bring up that incident in front of me. At the time, I thought Sophia was just following an online trend of giving cats as gifts, so I didn't think much of it. but the bullet she fired back then now landed right between her brows. I lifted my eyes, questioning her. Since it's my cat, why did you hide it from me? Chapter 10. Sophia was speechless. I calmly pressed on. I lost my memory. So tell me, is it my fault? Is it because I didn't want to take care of it anymore? Sophia clenched her fists, and regret and struggle seemed to suffocate her. She looked helplessly at me. Joel, it's my fault. It's all because of my amnesia, and I didn't handle these things well, which made you sad. I promise I won't make the same mistake again. I lightly concluded. Amnesia is not an excuse for not taking care of a cat. I turned my gaze away, not looking at her pale face. I told her, since it's my cat, I'm taking it with me. At my words, Sophia's expression instantly brightened. Joel, I knew you wouldn't just abandon the cat. I abruptly interrupted her. Write a contract. You're not allowed to take the cat from me again. Sophia's smile froze. She muttered in discomfort. Joel, why are you being so cold with me? I scoffed. Let me remind you, Sophia, from my perspective, you're less than a stranger to me. Sophia stood still in shock, her eyes dimming instantly. Her face grew more and more pained each day. On the final evening, the sunset painted the sky, as brilliant as a work of art. We walked into the lavender field in the estate. The scenery here was so familiar. Everything was the same as the wedding a month ago. The only difference was the absence of the cloud of guests and the couple holding hands. We stood in the lavender sea. The breeze blew through my black hair, and the lavender swayed with it. In the bright afterglow, Sophia gazed at me intently. In her open palm was a familiar wedding ring. 2 months ago, that wedding ring had been on my finger, but on the day she married Horace, in this very lavender field, she had placed the ring on Horace's finger. How ironic, Sophia said softly. Joel, we once planned that our wedding would be grand here in this lavender sea. You would hold my hand, and in front of everyone, we'd make vows to each other, promising to grow old together. She gazed at me, her eyes seeming full of deep, unrepentant love. Joel, will you marry me? I couldn't help but laugh, pinching her chin. I mocked. You think I'm like Horace, someone who'll take whatever second-hand goods come their way? Sophia froze, stunned by my sudden response. Without mercy, I turned and left. I didn't want to stay in this wretched place any longer. After a long moment of stunned silence, she hurried after me. I paused my steps and coldly said, enough. It's the last day. Don't bother me after this. In panic, she grabbed my wrist. Her eyes were filled with bloodshot desperation, her voice full of pleading. Joel, just one last time. Please come with me to one place. I tugged my wrist impatiently. She didn't let go, her gaze full of humility. Just this last time. Reluctantly, I said, fine. When the car stopped, I saw a familiar villa in front of me. She hesitated before speaking. Joel, do you remember? This is our home. Chapter 11. Home? 3 months ago, I was kicked out from here in disgrace. My voice was firm. This is not my home. Sophia's expression became momentarily despondent. She instinctively reached for my hand, but I deliberately avoided her touch. I coldly said, Sophia, know your place. She bit her lip, silent. In the tense stillness, the door of the villa was suddenly pushed open from inside. Horace appeared, looking haggard, his stubble as though he hadn't groomed in a while. But when he saw Sophia, tears welled up in the corner of his eyes. He rushed forward, grabbing Sophia in a tight hug. Sophia, you're finally back. Do you know how long I've waited for you at home? I even saw the pregnancy test you threw away. Though you weren't pregnant. We'll have children in the future. Sophia's expression immediately darkened. She nervously looked at me, but instinctively pushed Horace away. Horace was standing on the stairs, and with her push, he lost his balance and fell backward, hitting his head against the corner of the wall, blood pouring out immediately. Everyone was shocked. After a long moment, Horace moved. He slowly lifted his lifeless eyes and stared at me with hatred. It's you. All because of you. Didn't you already leave? Why are you back here trying to steal Sophia again? He struggled and tried to lunge at me, but Sophia immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me. She snapped. Horace, haven't you had enough? Horace's eyes turned bloodshot in an instant. He glared at Sophia, his voice dripping with rage. Sophia, even now, you're still protecting him. I pushed Sophia aside and coldly reminded him. Horace, don't just spout nonsense and make baseless accusations. The villa's door has surveillance. It recorded everything clearly. If your brain is muddled, go check the footage and watch it properly. Horace's throat tightened. You, I warned. If you keep making false accusations, I'll have no choice but to report it to the police. If you keep bothering me, I will file a lawsuit. Horace's breath came in quick gasps. Sophia rubbed her temples and spoke indifferently. I don't love you anymore. What's happening now is your own doing. Horace's breath faltered. Hate surged in his hollow eyes as he spat. Sophia, I deliberately poked holes in the condom, but if you really loved him, you wouldn't have slept with me. He turned to look at me, a smirk on his lips. Do you know when it happened? During the month when you were preparing for the wedding. She already cheated. Willingly slept with me. Sophia was furious. Shut up. She hurriedly turned to me, trying to explain. Joel, don't believe him. Let me explain. The pregnancy test wasn't mine. He's trying to frame me. I interrupted her. I don't need your explanation. At that moment, my face was as calm as ever, as if I were watching a drama that had nothing to do with me. I said softly, Sophia, I don't care. Our deal is over. Don't bother me again. I turned to leave. Sophia tried to follow but was knocked to the ground by Horace. I didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Sophia's cries, full of hatred. Horace, why did you ruin me? I hate you. Chapter 12. Sophia disappeared from my world. I transferred the branch office to another city, bought a house, and settled in that city. Occasionally, while stroking the soft fur of the cat in my arms, I would unknowingly think of Sophia. Her life now was far from easy. The company's economy had taken a downturn, and the shareholders were voicing their discontent with her. She was overwhelmed with work, struggling to keep up. The most troublesome thing was that Horace had latched onto her. Ever since Horace hit his head, his mental state had been somewhat unstable. He would constantly follow Sophia around, muttering to himself. He repeatedly said, Sophia, how can you like another man? It's just a breakup. This isn't the first time you've told me you wanted to break up. After a while, we'll get back together. He went on and on. But, Sophia, I've waited for you for so long. Why haven't you come back to me yet? Sophia was thoroughly annoyed by his persistence. She had hit him, scolded him, and tried to drive him away. But Horace would always come back to cling to her. Over time, Sophia grew more and more irritable. She lost control of her emotions and nearly beat Horace to death in public. Horace had a mental illness, so she wasn't held accountable. She was detained at a detention center. A video of the incident went viral online. Netizens furiously criticized her, condemning her from all sides. Under the pressure of online bullying, her past actions of stalking and harassing me resurfaced. Once again, she incited public outrage. Amid the negative public opinion, her company's stock continued to plummet. By the time she returned to the company, she was facing accusations from the shareholders. But now, Sophia had enough trouble of her own. She had someone beat Horace into the ICU. Horace's family members sued her, and the case went to court. Now, Sophia had only two choices: either lose the lawsuit and end up in prison, or take care of Horace for the rest of her life under the supervision of his family. This matter became a hot topic online for an entire month. When the media storm finally calmed down, Sophia and Horace secretly got their marriage certificate. She married Horace, whom she had always looked down on. For the rest of her life, she would have to care for Horace, whose mental state was often normal but sometimes completely deranged. Under the watchful eyes of his family, she would be entangled with Horace for the rest of her life. I never expected to meet Sophia again. It was just by chance. She spotted me, her eyes full of complicated emotions. After a while, she called out to me, Joel, are you doing well now? I glanced at Sophia. It was clear she wasn't doing well. Her hair had turned graying, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes had deepened, and her face wore a dead, suffocating air of frustration. I heard that she still had shares in the company, but had no real power. Her career and family were both in shambles. I raised an eyebrow, ignoring her. Before I got in the car, her gaze lingered on me, unwilling to look away. I turned around, standing just far enough for her to hear my voice. My amnesia was fake, and I know yours was too. We're even now. Sophia's pupils dilated in shock. She wanted to rush forward and confront me, but was stopped by Horace, who had appeared out of nowhere. Without hesitation, I got into the car and drove off, leaving her with only the exhaust fumes. When I was with Sophia, I learned that she had a 5-year-long on-again, off-again ex-boyfriend. To say I didn't mind would be a lie. She repeatedly assured me that she would never have anything to do with Horace again. But during the month I was carefully planning our wedding, she and Horace crossed paths once more. On the morning she got her marriage certificate, I left in a rush for work. When I came back early, I heard sounds from the bedroom that I could hardly bear to listen to. It was Sophia and Horace. It felt like a thunderclap. I didn't even have the strength to push the door open. I didn't expose her. I left Sophia with a shred of dignity. Cheating was my bottom line. I couldn't tolerate it, but for a moment, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Yet, Sophia grew greedy. I overheard her talking on the phone with a close friend. She said lightly, I regret it. I don't want to be tied down by marriage at such a young age. Besides, he doesn't love me as much as Horace does. Horace would do anything for me. He's not like him. Too calm, too boring. I want to take a break from him, and when he's figured things out, he can come back to me. Amnesia. If I lost my memory, would he lose control? I want to see how far he would go for me. It should be interesting.